Welcome to the hidden battlefield of Europe, where a single rifle can determine the rise and fall of entire armies. March 2022. The snow-laden plains of Eastern Europe stretched endlessly beneath a steel-gray sky. Artillery echoed in the distance, faint but persistent, carrying the tension of countless soldiers poised on the edge of chaos. Eastern forces gripped their AK-74s with white-knuckled intensity, fingers brushing cold metal, eyes scanning tree lines blurred by winter mist. To the west, squads armed with G36 rifles moved in disciplined formations across frozen rivers, every breath a visible plume, every heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of drills honed over decades. And yet neither side fully realized the invisible hand that would tilt the scales, the sheer unrelenting power embedded in their standard-issue rifles. Before we plunge deeper, leave a comment where you're watching from and the exact time you're listening. Share your pulse, your thoughts, the moment this story finds you. A single shot could echo across nations. A single rifle could define victory or annihilation. Maps of Europe hide secrets in plain sight, each line demarcating not just borders but arsenals, calibers, magazine capacities, cyclic rates, recoil dynamics, and the subtle differences that decide who stands and who falls. The G36 sleek polymer-stocked German precision engineered, capable of delivering bursts with uncanny consistency. The AK-74 legendary for its durability, brutal simplicity, able to endure mud, snow, sand, and still spit fire with relentless accuracy. In isolated villages and fortified compounds, instructors drilled young conscripts, emphasizing stance, breathing, trigger, discipline. But little did they know that these rifles, seemingly ordinary, were quietly scripting a story of dominance, shaping the fate of battalions before strategies could even be executed. Intelligence reports whispered of encounters in training simulations where standard-issue weapons achieved effects previously reserved for elite units. Soldiers recounted in diaries how minor mechanical advantages, a lighter bolt, a smoother gas piston, a redesigned magazine transformed their ability to control engagements, turn corners, hold positions, and react with split-second precision. Across Europe, experts debated, analysts charted every variation, comparing recoil patterns, muzzle velocities, and effective ranges, noting where the AK-74 excelled in harsh conditions, where the G36 excelled in rapid-fire urban scenarios. And yet, the most shocking revelations were not in manuals, not in official reports, but in the human element. Young soldiers barely trained found themselves outperforming veterans, the rifles acting as extensions of instinct, as amplifiers of decision-making, turning ordinary men into coordinated lethal units. Simulations in virtual environments demonstrated outcomes that defied expectations. Platoons armed with these standard rifles could hold entire corridors against overwhelming numerical superiority. Maps lit with heat signatures, lines marking firing arcs, ranges, impact probabilities, and yet the cold calculus could not capture the psychological terror inflicted by knowing the enemy wielded the same tool with unprecedented efficiency. The forests whispered secrets as rounds ricocheted off frozen trunks, snow sprayed with each burst, and echoes of gunfire reverberated like ghosts of past conflicts, layering folklore upon fact. Commanders from both sides observed these exercises in stunned silence. Their assumptions about parity shattered, their doctrines questioned. Every click of a magazine, every chambering of a round, became a signal in a larger symphony of tension. And the most astonishing aspect, the rifles were standard issue. Not prototypes, not experimental systems. The very tools issued to every infantryman, democratizing firepower in ways few had anticipated. The AK-74 could deliver sustained fire in temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius, while the G36 maintained thermal stability in desert simulations, both rifles achieving what many had considered impossible for mass-issued weapons. In the quiet moments between drills, soldiers scribbled notes in journals. The recoil is almost non-existent. I can follow every target. My squad feels unstoppable. Every shot counts. Every engagement teaches you that the rifle is not just a tool, it is a force multiplier. Each observation feeding a growing legend, whispered among units, spreading faster than official reports could travel, giving rise to a folklore of ordinary rifles wielding extraordinary influence. Satellite imagery, training logs, and war games confirmed anomalies. Units with these rifles repeatedly outperformed, predicted outcomes demonstrating the subtle but decisive superiority embedded in their design. Weapon engineers quietly acknowledged that minor enhancements, changes in metallurgy, barrel harmonics, and polymer design were producing results that commanders and strategists alike could not fully anticipate. Every test, every exercise, every live-fire drill reinforced a growing truth. Europe's standard rifles were silently shaping the landscape of modern warfare. The map of Europe, dotted with training grounds, urban ranges, and historical conflict zones, became a visual representation of this hidden revolution. Lines connecting nations, rifles, calibers, and ranges told a story no general's briefing could capture in full. The tension in the air was almost palpable. Snowflakes drifting past scopes, the faint smell of oil and gunpowder, the muted thump of distant artillery, each sensory detail layered upon the narrative of rifles dictating outcomes before battles had even begun. Soldiers whispered among themselves about impossible scenarios, small squads holding choke points against overwhelming forces, precision fire neutralizing threats with surgical efficiency. Yet no one could believe that such results came from what were ostensibly standard rifles. This is the battlefield hidden in plain sight. Every engagement, every maneuver, every heartbeat mapped across Europe by the silent dominance of the AK-74 and G36. A story of unexpected power of ordinary men armed with extraordinary tools of strategies rewritten not by generals but by the subtle genius engineered into standard-issue rifles. And as you watch, remember, every round fired, every magazine inserted, every tactical decision is part of this larger narrative. The map, the rifles, the men, converging to shape modern warfare in ways most have never imagined. March 2022. The sun barely pierced the dense clouds over the Carpathian Mountains. Frost-laden winds howled through the valleys carrying the scent of pine resin and distant gunpowder. The ground was hard, unforgiving. A patchwork of frozen mud, rocky outcrops, and abandoned villages scarred from decades of conflict. In the eastern sector, young conscripts shuffled through drills, each step deliberate, each weapon cradled as if it were an extension of their own bodies. The AK-74, its stamped receiver gleaming faintly under the pale light, lay ready in their hands. Instructors barked orders sharp and precise, their voices cutting through the roar of wind and the distant thrum of artillery, insisting on posture, aim, and breath control. Every soldier knew that a misstep, a misjudged sight picture, a hesitation could spell the difference between survival and death. Across the valley, NATO forces moved with meticulous coordination. Squads carrying G36 rifles that had been refined over decades of iterative testing, polymer stocks, and precision optics, designed to maintain accuracy under duress. The disciplined cadence of their steps echoed in the frosty air, the synchronized hum of logistics vehicles and command radios forming an invisible grid orchestrating movement, like a symphony of tactical efficiency. Observers on high ridges noted the contrast, the raw simplicity of the East's rugged soldiers against the precise choreography of the Western units. It was not just a clash of men, but a convergence of philosophies, engineering, and doctrine. Every nuance mattered: the weight of a rifle, the balance of a magazine, the subtle play of recoil elements that would define the battle long before shots were fired. The villages they passed bore silent witness to the passage of armies. Broken fences, empty stables, frozen wells, all artifacts of a landscape long conditioned by conflict. Children peered from shuttered windows, eyes wide with curiosity and fear, imagining legends whispered in hushed tones, the rifle that never jammed the gun that could outshoot 20 others, the weapon that carried a legacy of precision across generations. These tales, half fact, half myth, were passed among villagers and soldiers alike, blending folklore with the cold reality of metal ballistics and marksmanship. Every winter exercise became a crucible where legends were tested, snowstorms, and sub-zero temperatures proving whether training doctrine and engineering could survive the unforgiving elements. In one valley, a platoon armed with AK-74s conducted a live-fire exercise. Rounds pierced the crisp air, ricocheting off frozen trunks, scattering shards of ice like fireworks. Commanders noted the consistency of fire, the ability of soldiers to adapt to compensate for wind drift and fatigue. Meanwhile, NATO instructors observed the performance of G36-equipped squads in urban simulations, where rapid movement, optical precision, and recoil management allowed them to dominate corridors and fortified buildings with astonishing efficiency. Reports filtered up the chain of command, detailing effective ranges, magazine cycling times, recoil patterns, and the subtle behavioral tendencies of each rifle under stress. Analysts compared these metrics across theaters, drawing maps of lethality, mobility, and reliability that highlighted both strengths and vulnerabilities. The contrast between environments became stark. In the frozen forests, the AK-74's reliability shone. Soldiers could clear mud from chambers, fire through snow-laden cartridges, and continue operating with minimal maintenance. In dry temperate zones, the G36's precision optics and modularity allowed for rapid target acquisition and coordinated volleys that overwhelmed opposition units. In briefings, officers calculated engagement probabilities, noting how a minor advantage in bolt design or gas piston tolerance could shift the outcome of a firefight. War diaries captured anecdotes, a soldier describing how his AK-74 fired flawlessly after hours in a snowstorm. Another detailing how a G36's adjustable stock allowed for perfect alignment on a moving target in an urban training facility. These personal accounts, when aggregated, painted a picture of rifles not as simple tools but as force multipliers, each nuance shaping tactics, morale, and operational outcomes. Satellite imagery corroborated reports showing patterns of fire unit dispersion and simulated casualty impacts. Intelligence analysts pored over every detail from barrel harmonics to ammunition feed rates, seeking predictive insights into how a standard rifle could redefine battlefield dynamics. The very definition of balance between design human capability and environmental adaptation became central to understanding the modern conflict theater. As the days passed, exercises intensified. Eastern units maneuvered through frozen ravines, practicing flanking maneuvers and ambush tactics. Their AK-74s integrated seamlessly into every movement, every decision. Western squads advanced through mock urban centers, G36s held at the ready, scanning rooftops, alleys, and windows, every shot rehearsed in simulation, yet executed with precision in reality. Artillery pounded distant hillsides, adding a chaotic drumbeat to the calculated rhythm of infantry movement. Radio chatter crackled with coded commands, reinforcing coordination, timing, and situational awareness. Observers noted the psychological effect the mere presence of these rifles influenced behavior, dictating pace, confidence, and the willingness to advance under fire. Folklore mingled with fact as soldiers whispered stories of rifles that seemed to anticipate the enemy, that enabled impossible maneuvers, that amplified skill into near superhuman performance. It was in these moments that the convergence of engineering training and environmental adaptation became undeniable. The rifles dictated the tempo, shaped the strategy, and influenced the very calculus of risk and reward. Nightfall brought a different challenge. Temperatures plummeted, snow compacted into ice, and the howling wind masked footsteps and commands. Eastern forces conducted nocturnal patrols, relying on the rugged reliability of their AK-74s. Western units executed night drills using infrared optics mounted on G36s, the precision allowing them to dominate corridors invisible to the untrained eye. Tension hung heavy in the air. Soldiers huddled, rifles, cradled eyes, scanning darkness for the first hint of movement. Every twitch, every snap of a branch became amplified in perception, magnified by training experience and the inherent capabilities of the weapons in hand. After-action reports highlighted how minor differences in trigger sensitivity, bolt travel, and sight alignment could dictate survival or failure in high-stakes engagements. Folklore, again intertwined with reality, tales of lone soldiers holding choke points, rifles performing flawlessly despite impossible conditions, actions that inspired awe and disbelief alike. Analysts noted that these scenarios, while anecdotal, revealed patterns, a convergence of human instinct and engineered reliability, producing outcomes that doctrine alone could not predict. Each exercise, each engagement reinforced the understanding that Europe's standard rifles were far more than equipment. They were instruments of tactical determinism, quietly sculpting modern warfare from the ground up. As weeks of training continued, patterns emerged. Eastern soldiers learned to exploit terrain using their rifles to control lines of sight, cover approaches, and dictate engagement distance. Western squads refined coordination, firing, and synchronized bursts, adjusting for recoil, and environmental factors, achieving effects that seemed almost preordained. Weapon logs, ballistics reports, and environmental analyses were cross-referenced, confirming that subtle engineering differences, barrel length, gas port diameter, polymer composition, consistently provided tactical advantages. Historians noted parallels with past conflicts, observing that the integration of reliable standard rifles into mass armies had repeatedly altered operational outcomes throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. oral accounts. Letters and journal entries captured the human dimension: fear, anticipation, awe, and the quiet respect for instruments that allowed ordinary soldiers to accomplish extraordinary feats. It became clear that these rifles were not just shaping individual engagements but influencing the strategic calculus of entire campaigns. The interplay between human skill, environmental conditions, and weapon design reached its apex during combined exercises simulating large-scale engagements. Snowfields, urban mock-ups, forests, and open plains were all arenas where AK-74s and G36s demonstrated their capabilities. Analysts charted every kill ratio, engagement time, and suppression effect, noting with fascination that units armed with standard rifles frequently outperformed predictions based on numbers alone. Soldiers internalized lessons in adaptability, marksmanship, and coordination. Their confidence rooted in both training and the dependable performance of their rifles. Folklore, once dismissed as exaggeration, gained credibility. Tales of small squads holding entire corridors of precise fire, neutralizing superior forces of weapons performing flawlessly under impossible conditions, all grounded in documented evidence. Europe's standard rifles, through design training and deployment, became agents of operational transformation, dictating not only tactics, but the very psychology of combatants. By the end of the cycle, it was indisputable the AK-74 and G36 were more than weapons. They were vectors of power shaping doctrine, morale, and battlefield outcomes. Maps of Europe overlaid with unit positions, firing arcs, and range projections revealed the invisible influence of standard rifles on operational success. Soldiers, commanders, and analysts alike recognized the convergence of engineering precision, environmental adaptation, and human ingenuity as the decisive factor in modern engagements. Folklore and fact, anecdote and data, perception and reality all merged to tell a singular truth. These rifles had quietly, inexorably reshaped modern European warfare. And as observers documented every maneuver, every exercise, every minor engagement, the realization crystallized that Europe's standard rifles were the silent architects of strategy, the unseen determiners of victory and failure, and the ultimate arbiters of modern battlefield dynamics. March 2022. The intelligence reports began arriving in rapid succession, each one more astonishing than the last. Technical specifications, test results, and engagement simulations painted a picture of rifles that defied conventional expectations. The AK-74's gas-operated piston system allowed for rapid sustained fire even under the harshest winter conditions, maintaining cyclic rates that rivaled prototype weapons, while its rugged simplicity ensured near-zero malfunction rates across hundreds of engagements. The G36, on the other hand, incorporated advanced barrel harmonics, modular components, and state-of-the-art optics, enabling precision fire at extended ranges, high first-shot hit probability, and exceptional reliability in temperate and urban environments. Analysts pored over the numbers: muzzle velocities, barrel twist rates, recoil, impulse curves, magazine capacity, and ammunition standardization. Each data point confirmed what trainers and soldiers had already observed in the field. These were not merely standard rifles, but force multipliers capable of reshaping small unit tactics, operational tempo, and even strategic planning. The reports detailed engagement outcomes from training simulations and controlled exercises across multiple European theaters. In one instance, an AK-74-equipped platoon maneuvered through a dense pine forest while maintaining full suppressive fire. Every soldier's accuracy was recorded, every target neutralized, and every reload timed. Their performance exceeded predictions, with hit ratios 17% above statistical expectations. The G36-equipped Western units conducted urban clearing exercises, their precision optics allowing squads to dominate multi-story buildings, corridors, and choke points. Simulated civilians and opposing forces fell to coordinated fire in a fraction of the predicted engagement time. The contrast was stark, and the implications profound. Rifles designed for standard issue were achieving results previously attributed only to specialized marksmen or elite units. Every minor design nuance became a critical factor in outcomes. The AK-74's long-stroke piston reduced fouling in sub-zero temperatures, allowing consistent operation without extensive cleaning. Polymer magazines resisted cracking in extreme cold and reliably fed rounds during rapid bursts. The G36's free-floating barrel and adjustable sighting system provided predictable shot placement, reducing variance in rapid-fire sequences, while the modular stock allowed soldiers to maintain ergonomic alignment in urban and confined environments. Engineers compared test data against historical rifles, noting that the combined rate of fire reliability and ease of maintenance created a level of operational efficiency rarely seen in conventional infantry units. War rooms across Europe began mapping scenarios where these rifles alone could tilt tactical engagements independent of numerical superiority. Soldiers' first-hand accounts corroborated the technical data. In field diaries, Eastern infantrymen described how their AK-74s continued firing flawlessly after hours of exposure to freezing rain, snow, and mud. They recounted how the lightweight allowed for rapid movement between positions, how recoil management enabled accurate suppressive fire, and how magazine reliability prevented costly stoppages. Western soldiers detailed their experiences with G36s during urban maneuvers, noting the optical clarity under varying light conditions, the ease of transitioning between targets, and the rifle's ability to maintain zero despite rapid bursts. These human observations, when aggregated across units and environments, reinforced the statistical data demonstrating a consistent pattern of superiority dictated not by chance, but by engineering training and environmental adaptation. Further analysis examined the interplay between rifle capabilities and soldier decision-making. In simulated engagements, units armed with AK-74s displayed increased confidence, shorter reaction times, and superior coordination under stress. The rifle's reliability provided psychological assurance, allowing soldiers to focus on maneuver observation and tactical adaptation rather than mechanical concerns. Similarly, G36-equipped squads showed enhanced lethality in rapid engagements, using precision fire to control avenues of approach, dominate corridors, and suppress opposition effectively. The rifles themselves became agents of behavioral modulation, influencing risk assessment, aggression levels, and operational tempo. Commanders observed that outcomes were consistently skewed by the interaction of human skill and rifle performance, highlighting a previously underappreciated dimension of modern warfare. Ballistic studies provided additional insight. Trajectories, muzzle energy, and effective ranges were charted meticulously. The AK-74's 5.45 by 39mm round exhibited low recoil, high velocity, and exceptional penetration against standard protective gear. In contrast, the G36's 5.56/45mm NATO round maintained higher velocity over extended distances, facilitating accurate first-shot hits in urban and open environments alike. Comparative tables illustrated how small differences in caliber, barrel length, and rifling geometry produced measurable tactical advantages, allowing planners to predict engagement outcomes with greater accuracy than ever before. These findings were cross-referenced with live-fire simulations, field exercises, and historical engagement data confirming that standard rifles were shaping battle outcomes in subtle yet decisive ways. The human dimension remained central. Soldiers spoke of a near-symbiotic relationship with their weapons. The AK-74's consistent feedback allowed instinctive firing sequences, while the G36's precision optics provided visual confirmation of tactical hypotheses. Folklore emerged alongside fact tales of lone soldiers holding entire corridors, squads executing near-impossible ambushes, and rifle malfunctions being virtually non-existent circulated widely. These stories, initially dismissed as exaggerations, were supported by extensive field data reinforcing the perception that standard-issue rifles were not just tools, but strategic force multipliers. Analysts began to map these occurrences, identifying patterns in terrain engagement type and environmental conditions that consistently favored certain rifles, turning anecdotal evidence into actionable intelligence. Logistics and maintenance also played a crucial role. The AK-74 required minimal cleaning and could operate with improvised lubrication, reducing downtime and increasing operational readiness. The G36's modular design allowed rapid replacement of worn parts, field adjustment of optics, and maintenance under austere conditions. Engineers quantified the effect units experienced fewer stoppages, higher firing rates, and longer operational endurance compared to previous standard-issue rifles. This data informed strategic planning, as commanders recognized that rifle design could influence not only immediate engagements, but also operational sustainability over extended campaigns. Maps and charts illustrating unit endurance, firepower projection, and engagement outcomes became essential tools in modern military planning, emphasizing the rifle as both a tactical and strategic asset. Training regimens evolved accordingly. Eastern units focused on exploiting the AK-74's reliability and rapid-fire capability, emphasizing maneuvering in challenging terrain, suppressive fire, and team coordination. Western units refined tactics around the G36, integrating precision optics, rapid target transition, and controlled bursts to dominate confined and urban spaces. Instructors noted improvements in unit cohesion, confidence, and effectiveness directly attributable to the rifles themselves. Virtual reality and live fire simulations confirmed these observations, showing consistent patterns of engagement where rifle performance dictated success or failure. Analysts concluded that mastery of a standard rifle had become as critical as numerical superiority, terrain advantage, or artillery support. The line between weapon performance and tactical outcome had blurred, creating a new paradigm in modern infantry warfare. Satellite and drone surveillance added another layer. Engagement zones were monitored continuously, recording rounds fired, hit ratios, movement patterns, and environmental conditions. Analysts could correlate rifle performance with unit outcomes, demonstrating causality rather than correlation. The data confirmed that small design variations, gas system tolerance, barrel harmonics, sighting accuracy consistently influenced combat effectiveness. This reinforced the perception that rifles were the unseen architects of engagement outcomes, quietly determining who advanced, who held ground, and who faltered under pressure. Folklore narratives of miracle rifles were thus grounded in empirical evidence, illustrating the fusion of legend and fact in the modern combat environment. By the conclusion of the reporting period, a clear pattern emerged. Across diverse terrains, climates, and engagement types, the AK-74 and G36 consistently produced outcomes that shaped tactical, operational, and strategic decisions. Maps overlaying unit positions, firing arcs, and engagement results illustrated an invisible network of influence exerted by standard rifles. Historians, analysts, and commanders acknowledged a singular truth. Europe's standard rifles were far more than instruments of war. They were determinants of operational success, psychological enablers, and silent arbiters of modern battlefield dynamics. Soldiers, engineers, and strategists alike understood that the rifle, in its quiet efficiency, had become the ultimate force multiplier, reshaping engagements, campaigns, and the very perception of modern warfare. The implications extended beyond the battlefield, influencing doctrine, training, and the evolution of infantry tactics across the continent. The freezing dawn broke over the snow-laden forest, pale light filtering through skeletal branches, casting long shadows across the frozen ground. A single eastern squad moved cautiously, their AK-74s cradled, close fingers poised on triggers, eyes scanning every movement in the dense undergrowth. Frost-coated boots crunched softly on brittle leaves and ice, the subtle sound swallowed by the howling wind. Private Ivanov, barely 20, led the formation, his breath visible in the cold air, heart pounding, as he recalled the drills drilled into him over months of preparation. The rifle felt like an extension of his body, its familiar weight and balance allowing instinctive reaction to every rustle, every flicker of movement. He could sense the terrain through the rifle, the incline of the hill, the density of the brush, the angles of visibility, each variable accounted for, internalized, mapped in his mind as he advanced. Across the valley, a Western reconnaissance team navigated the same terrain, their G36s equipped with night optics despite the dim morning light. Sergeant Mueller adjusted his stock, scanning the tree line with methodical precision. His squad moved in near silence, trained to exploit urban and forested cover alike. Every footstep, every glance, every whisper of movement coordinated in anticipation of a potential engagement. The rifles provided both confidence and lethality. Each burst of controlled fire could neutralize a threat before it fully materialized. The juxtaposition was stark: east, rugged and resilient; west, calculated and precise. Yet both squads shared a single, undeniable truth: the rifle dictated not only tactics, but psychology. The perceived threat, the pace of movement, and the very decision to advance or hold position depended on the weapon in their hands. As Ivanov's squad crested a ridge, the wind gusted, sending snowflakes swirling into their faces. He adjusted his grip, sighting along the AK-74, tracking a distant tree line where movement hinted at an approaching target. A single pop echoed as a round struck a frozen trunk. The rifle performed flawlessly. Behind him, his comrades mirrored the precision, suppressive fire covering the flank, while others maneuvered to higher ground. The squad operated in near-perfect synchronicity, each action dictated by a combination of training terrain and weapon reliability. Whispered legends among the men spoke of rifles that could not be jammed, rifles that turned novices into lethal units, rifles that in some inexplicable way seemed to anticipate enemy action. Folklore and fact blurred as the AK-74 demonstrated its capacity to amplify instinct into decisive force. Meanwhile, Muller's team descended into a shallow ravine G36 SIS at ready. The optical sight picked out subtle movement across the snow, calculating distance, trajectory, and target priority. Bursts of fire were executed with split-second timing, suppressing imaginary adversaries in a live-fire drill. Every member understood the value of precision and consistency. Even minor misalignments could result in missed shots, allowing the illusion of danger to manifest into potential threat. Yet the G36's engineering, combined with the soldiers' training, minimized error. The psychological effect was immediate. Confidence surged, hesitation diminished, and squads could move with a level of assurance unattainable without such a reliable weapon. Every exercise became a testament to the interplay of human skill and rifle capability, demonstrating the profound influence of standard-issue weapons on combat dynamics. Across the valley, a minor engagement unfolded, a simulated ambush with snow-draped trees and icy undergrowth as cover. Ivanov's squad executed maneuvers they had rehearsed countless times. Suppressive fire pinned the opposing team, while flanking elements moved silently through concealed paths. Rounds struck with predictable impact rifles, cycling smoothly despite the biting cold. Whispered communication hand signals and instinctive movements demonstrated a unity between soldier and weapon that transcended basic training. The AK-74's consistency under pressure allowed the squad to maintain initiative, forcing the opposing team into reactive positions. The effect was profound. What began as a simple drill evolved into a near-perfect orchestration of tactical dominance. Folklore reinforced this reality with stories circulating of squads holding entire corridors with little manpower, an almost mythical extension of the rifle's influence. Simultaneously, Muller's team executed a counter-scenario. Simulated enemy forces attempted to breach their position along a frozen creek. The G36's precise burst control and sighting systems allowed for rapid controlled fire, suppressing the opposition and enabling counter-maneuvers. Each soldier reacted seamlessly, adjusting to environmental variables, managing recoil, and maintaining accuracy. The rifle dictated movement, influenced decisions, and shaped the outcome before the enemy could fully engage. Anecdotes passed among soldiers spoke of ghost rifles, weapons that seemed to act with uncanny foresight, their reliability and precision amplifying human capability into near-superhuman effectiveness. The legend of standard rifles as decisive force multipliers was reinforced with every exercise, every simulation, every recorded engagement. As the day progressed, fatigue began to set in. Bitter cold sapped energy, muscles tightened, and concentration wavered. Yet the rifles remained unwavering. Ivanov's AK-74 performed flawlessly, allowing the squad to continue maneuvers without mechanical interruption. Muller's G36 sustained zero and precision despite hours of continuous drills. The reliability of these weapons under stress created a psychological edge, enhancing endurance, confidence, and decision-making. Folklore narratives became entwined with observation. Stories of rifles performing miracles under impossible conditions were not mere exaggeration. They were documented patterns verified by logs, after-action reports, and direct observation. These small squads became living proof that rifles, even standard issue, could dictate outcomes far beyond their mechanical design. By dusk, the exercises concluded, but the lessons endured. Soldiers, instructors, and analysts alike recognized a singular truth: human skill, environmental conditions, and weapon design formed a triumvirate with rifles at the core. Every suppressed engagement, every maneuver, every decision traced back to the interplay of these factors. The AK-74 and G36 were not simply tools. They were extensions of instinct, amplifiers of strategy, and silent arbiters of battlefield outcomes. Folklore and fact merged into a coherent narrative, rifles shaping not only the immediate skirmish, but the broader understanding of modern European warfare. Whispers among veterans and observers carried forward tales of extraordinary feats, accomplished with standard-issue weapons tales that would inform doctrine training and perception for generations to come. The human scene, intimate and immediate, revealed the profound, sometimes invisible influence of the rifle, embedding the weapon deep into the psychology and operational fabric of every soldier. And as night fell, the snow-strewn forests grew silent, leaving only the echoes of what had been achieved. Small squads, extraordinary outcomes, and rifles that quietly dictated the rules of engagement before a single strategic command had been given. The following day, analysts compiled extensive data comparing the Eastern and Western units, revealing striking contrasts in rifle performance, squad coordination, and engagement outcomes. Statistical charts highlighted suppression rates, first shot accuracy, effective ranges, and sustained fire metrics, showing that small design variations could produce dramatic battlefield effects. The AK-74 consistently maintained higher reliability in sub-zero conditions, with mechanical stoppages virtually non-existent during long-duration exercises, while the G36 excelled in precision bursts over extended urban ranges, demonstrating superior first-hit probability and rapid target acquisition. Engineers noted that minor enhancements, such as polymer magazine tolerances, gas piston alignment, and barrel harmonics created measurable advantages, often deciding engagements before the enemy could fully respond. These findings transformed standard rifles from simple tools into decisive variables in operational planning, forcing commanders to reconsider tactics and strategy in light of rifle capabilities. Field reports reinforced the numerical data. Eastern units reported minimal downtime, consistent cyclic rates, and high accuracy across varied terrain. Western units documented superior target engagement in urban scenarios, reduced collateral damage in training simulations, and improved coordination between teams facilitated by the G36's ergonomic design and advanced optics. Every engagement, every drill, every simulated ambush yielded quantifiable evidence of the rifle's influence. Analysts cross-referenced these outcomes with historical campaigns, confirming that standard-issue rifles had repeatedly shaped tactical success, transforming ordinary infantry into force multipliers capable of exceeding theoretical expectations. The subtle interplay of engineering and human performance became increasingly apparent, with minor mechanical advantages producing disproportionate strategic impact. The human dimension remained central. Soldiers' narratives, diaries, and video recordings detailed how the rifles affected decision-making, morale, and combat effectiveness. AK-74 operators described the confidence instilled by reliability under extreme cold and continuous fire, enabling them to maneuver aggressively, suppress opposing forces, and exploit terrain advantages. G36 users emphasized the precision and predictability of their rifles, allowing for rapid target transitions and coordinated team maneuvers that overwhelmed simulated adversaries. These observations, when quantified and correlated with engagement outcomes, revealed a pattern. The rifle dictated not only the pace of battle, but the psychology of the operators, shaping choices, risk tolerance, and initiative. Comparative simulations illustrated further contrasts. In forested exercises, the AK-74's durability allowed Eastern squads to maintain momentum despite adverse conditions. Sustained fire, quick magazine changes, and predictable recoil translated into effective suppression and successful flanking maneuvers. Urban scenarios favored the G36, where controlled bursts, optical clarity, and modular adaptability permitted squads to dominate corridors and multi-story structures. Analysts calculated engagement probabilities, demonstrating that even minor differences in rifle design could shift success rates by significant margins, turning conventional assumptions about numerical superiority on their head. Standard rifles had evolved into instruments of asymmetric advantage, their performance dictating the outcome of engagements in ways that training and doctrine alone could not anticipate. Ballistic studies provided additional insight. AK-74 rounds, with their low recoil and high velocity, penetrated protective barriers reliably, while G36 rounds maintained accuracy over longer distances, minimizing shot dispersion during rapid-fire sequences. Trajectory analyses combined with environmental modeling revealed how minor mechanical variances, gas system tolerances, barrel rigidity, magazine feed rates influenced tactical effectiveness. These technical details informed operational planning, with commanders adjusting unit formations, engagement distances, and suppressive fire protocols to exploit rifle-specific advantages. Standard-issue rifles were not uniform tools, but differentiated assets shaping both tactics and outcomes. Logistical considerations reinforced these findings. The AK-74's minimal maintenance requirements allowed Eastern units to operate with high readiness even in austere environments. The G36's modularity permitted rapid replacement of components and optical adjustments under field conditions, ensuring uninterrupted performance. Planners recognized that these factors influenced not just individual engagements, but the sustainability of prolonged operations. Rifles became central to operational planning. Their reliability and precision integrated into broader strategic calculations, from supply chain management to force projection. The distinction between weapon capability and operational effectiveness had blurred, creating a paradigm in which standard rifles directly impacted strategic outcomes. Historical parallels highlighted the enduring impact of standard rifles. Studies compared contemporary performance with 20th-century conflicts, noting that reliable high-performance rifles had repeatedly shifted the balance of engagements. Anecdotes of small squads holding strategic points against superior forces, enabled by rifle reliability and precision, were mirrored in modern exercises. Analysts concluded that the integration of these rifles into infantry units was not merely tactical, but transformational, shaping doctrine, training, and operational expectations across European forces. Folklore of miracle rifles found empirical support, as both quantitative data and qualitative accounts validated extraordinary performance under ordinary conditions. Environmental factors amplified these contrasts. Terrain, weather, and visibility interacted with rifle capabilities to produce decisive effects. AK-74s demonstrated remarkable consistency in snow, ice, and sub-zero temperatures, while G36s maintained zero and precision during rapid transitions in urban clutter, smoke, and limited light. Simulations documented how these interactions could alter engagement outcomes by several percentage points, sufficient to determine success or failure in critical scenarios. The rifles themselves became agents of environmental adaptation, shaping decisions at the squad level and cascading into operational consequences. Folklore reinforced these lessons, as stories of impossible feats under extreme conditions circulated among units, blending myth with empirical observation. The result was a comprehensive understanding that rifles' training and environment were inextricably linked in defining modern battlefield dynamics. As exercises concluded, patterns emerged clearly. Eastern and Western units alike exhibited outcomes dictated by the interaction of rifle performance, human skill, and environmental variables. The AK-74 and G36 had become determinants of initiative, reaction time, and sustained effectiveness. Units adapted tactics to maximize rifle strengths, exploiting reliability, precision, and ergonomics to achieve decisive results. Analysts quantified the influence of standard rifles on engagement success, noting that mechanical design, ballistic performance, and operator confidence collectively shaped operational outcomes. Folklore, anecdotal reports, and statistical data converged, reinforcing the notion that standard rifles were not merely tools, but central instruments in the orchestration of modern warfare. Strategic planning now incorporated the rifle as a critical factor, with unit deployment, engagement strategy, and operational tempo calibrated around weapon performance. By the end of the reporting period, the conclusion was undeniable. Standard rifles, AK-74 and G36, had transcended their role as individual tools, evolving into critical determinants of tactical, operational, and strategic outcomes. Maps overlaid with unit positions, firing arcs, and engagement success illustrated an invisible architecture of influence exerted by these rifles. Soldiers, instructors, and commanders recognized that human capability, environmental adaptation, and rifle performance formed a triad shaping the battlefield in profound ways. Anecdotes of extraordinary feats previously dismissed as legend found validation in data reinforcing the perception of rifles as force multipliers. Europe's standard rifles had quietly, relentlessly reshaped the calculus of modern warfare, demonstrating that even ordinary weapons in capable hands and under the right conditions could dictate the course of battle. The interplay of design, training, and human skill had produced a new paradigm where standard rifles were silent architects of engagement outcomes, psychological enablers and arbiters of success in the contemporary battlefield. The implications extended beyond training grounds, informing doctrine, strategy, and the evolution of infantry tactics across the continent, establishing the AK-74 and G36 as defining instruments of modern military capability. The aftermath of the exercises revealed lessons that extended far beyond the immediate battlefield. Commanders gathered in war rooms, poring over maps annotated with unit movements, engagement results, and the subtle influence of rifle performance. The AK-74 had demonstrated its ability to empower small units in extreme conditions, allowing them to hold terrain, execute flanking maneuvers, and maintain initiative even under adverse environmental stress. The G36 had similarly proven its superiority in urban and mixed terrain scenarios, delivering precision fire that controlled corridors, neutralized threats, and enabled coordinated advances. After-action reports highlighted the psychological impact soldiers' confidence and decisiveness were directly linked to the reliability, ergonomics, and predictability of their standard rifles. These findings challenged conventional assumptions about force projection, numerical superiority, and engagement strategy, illustrating that weapon performance could be as decisive as troop numbers or artillery support. Field commanders convened to assess the implications. Exercises had shown that small squads armed with standard rifles could achieve outcomes previously thought possible only with specialized forces. Minor mechanical differences previously considered negligible gas system tolerances, barrel harmonics, magazine feed, reliability, had repeatedly proven decisive. In cold weather simulations, Eastern units using AK-74s held defensive positions against numerically superior simulated forces, exploiting rifle reliability to maintain suppression, maneuver effectively, and preserve cohesion. Western units, using G36s, dominated urban corridors, utilizing rapid target acquisition, controlled bursts, and ergonomic design to maintain lethal efficiency. Analysts noted that these results were consistent across multiple exercises, proving that standard rifles were not just tools, but strategic determinants shaping tactical and operational success. The human element further illustrated the rifle's impact. Diaries, debriefs, and interviews recorded how soldiers internalized their weapons' capabilities, adjusting tactics instinctively. The AK-74's simplicity and ruggedness allowed Eastern conscripts to operate effectively in extreme cold and dense terrain, instilling a sense of reliability and confidence. The G36's precision optics and modular design enabled Western troops to execute complex maneuvers with synchronized efficiency, maintaining dominance in simulated urban conflicts. Soldiers described the rifles as extensions of their own perception and decision-making, enhancing situational awareness and enabling split-second responses. Folklore circulated alongside these observations, tales of soldiers holding entire sectors with minimal support, rifles performing flawlessly under impossible conditions. Yet these stories were substantiated by extensive field data and statistical analysis. The rifles had become both psychological anchors and tactical multipliers, influencing the behavior and performance of every soldier who carried them. Strategic analysis expanded beyond individual engagements. Military planners integrated rifle performance into operational models, accounting for effective range, cyclic rate reliability, and environmental adaptability when determining force disposition and mission planning. Simulations indicated that units equipped with superior rifles consistently achieved higher success rates in both defensive and offensive operations, even when outnumbered. These findings prompted a reevaluation of doctrines, emphasizing the role of standard rifles as critical force multipliers rather than mere infantry tools. Maps and charts illustrated how rifle performance dictated tempo, initiative, and operational reach, creating a framework where equipment capability directly influenced strategic outcomes. Folklore and anecdotal narratives reinforced these conclusions, as repeated instances of small unit dominance aligned with measurable technical advantages in weapon design. Logistical and maintenance considerations also influenced the aftermath. The AK-74 required minimal upkeep, allowing continuous operation under austere conditions, while the G36's modular components permitted rapid field adjustments and repair, ensuring sustained readiness. These factors contributed to operational endurance, enabling units to maintain pressure on objectives, respond to evolving threats, and exploit tactical opportunities without interruption. Planners recognized that the rifle's design, durability, and adaptability extended beyond individual engagements, shaping campaign-level decisions, supply requirements, and force deployment. The intersection of weapon performance and operational logistics highlighted the rifle's role as a decisive element in modern military planning, influencing not only immediate tactics, but the broader scope of strategic operations. Historical parallels reinforced the contemporary lessons. Past campaigns had demonstrated that reliable, effective rifles often determined the outcome of engagements independent of force size or numerical advantage. Analysts compared contemporary performance metrics with historical data, noting that the AK-74 and G36 embodied principles that had repeatedly proven decisive consistency, adaptability, and reliability under stress. Folklore, once dismissed as exaggeration, gained credibility through rigorous field observation, statistical validation, and repeated simulation. Tales of squads achieving improbable successes became case studies illustrating the profound effect of standard rifles on combat dynamics. Commanders recognized that mastery of these weapons combined with environmental adaptation and human skill could redefine the traditional balance between force terrain and tactics. Modern warfare was no longer dictated solely by strategy or numbers, but by the nuanced interplay of soldier weapon and environment. The culmination of these findings shaped doctrine and training. Units incorporated lessons learned into operational manuals, emphasizing the integration of weapon characteristics into tactical planning. Eastern forces focused on leveraging the AK-74's durability and reliability in diverse terrain, enhancing small unit cohesion and maneuverability. Western forces refined urban tactics around the G36 SOCs, prioritizing precision, rapid engagement, and coordinated fire. Instructors documented best practices capturing the subtle influence of rifle performance on engagement outcomes, situational awareness, and psychological readiness. Soldiers internalized these lessons, adjusting movement positioning and decision-making to align with their weapons' strengths, reinforcing the symbiotic relationship between human and rifle. Folklore and factual accounts merged into a coherent understanding, establishing a narrative in which standard rifles were central agents of modern combat effectiveness. By the end of the operational review, a clear pattern emerged. The AK-74 and G36 had transcended their role as individual weapons, becoming determinants of initiative morale and operational efficiency. Maps, charts, and engagement logs illustrated the invisible architecture of influence exerted by these rifles, demonstrating that equipment performance could dictate both immediate and long-term outcomes. Commanders and analysts acknowledged that folklore, anecdotal reports, and empirical data converged to validate the rifle's extraordinary impact. Standard rifles, once considered ordinary tools, had quietly redefined the parameters of modern warfare, influencing doctrine, shaping strategy, and altering the calculus of combat in ways both subtle and profound. The legacy was clear: rifles were no longer mere extensions of infantry, but architects of battlefield success, psychological enablers, and silent arbiters of operational outcomes across Europe's contemporary theaters. The lessons would inform generations of soldiers, planners, and strategists, embedding the AK-74 and G36 deeply into the DNA of modern warfare, their influence extending far beyond any single engagement, shaping the future of tactical, operational, and strategic thought across the continent. As night fell over the snow-laden forests and urban training grounds, a quiet reflection settled across Europe's battlefields. The exercises had concluded, but their implications echoed far beyond the immediate engagements. Commanders, analysts, and soldiers alike pondered the lessons learned. The AK-74 and G36 had proven their extraordinary influence, shaping tactical outcomes, operational tempo, and even strategic planning. These rifles, standard issue yet extraordinary in effect, had quietly dictated the rhythm of modern warfare, transforming ordinary units into decisive forces capable of achieving outcomes once thought impossible. The folklore of miracle rifles had found validation in empirical observation, statistical analysis, and the first-hand accounts of those who had wielded them, merging myth and reality into a coherent understanding of combat in the 21st century. Across Europe, maps were redrawn and analytical reports, not to reflect new borders but to capture the invisible influence of these weapons. Lines connecting units, firing arcs, engagement outcomes, and terrain features illustrated a network of tactical determinism. Soldiers moved with the knowledge that their rifle was not merely a tool but a companion, an enabler, and in many cases the arbiter of life and death. The subtle differences in design, the careful calibration of components, and the ergonomic considerations had produced results far beyond what conventional doctrine anticipated. Officers recognized that strategy must now incorporate weapon performance as a central variable, that success in battle depended as much on mechanical reliability and precision as on manpower training or numerical advantage. Folklore and fact intertwined, creating a narrative where rifles were both symbols and instruments of power, quietly rewriting the rules of engagement. Veterans recounted their experiences with reverence and awe, describing the psychological effect of knowing that a weapon would perform flawlessly under extreme conditions. The AK-74's ability to operate in sub-zero temperatures through mud, ice, and snow provided Eastern units with a sense of invincibility that translated into decisive action on the ground. The G36, with its precision optics and modular adaptability, allowed Western squads to dominate urban corridors, control approaches, and coordinate synchronized fire with near-perfect accuracy. Anecdotes of squads holding entire sectors of individuals neutralizing multiple threats with confidence were not mere exaggerations. They were documented patterns reflecting the intrinsic power of the standard rifles. The human experience had fused with engineering excellence to create a battlefield paradigm where ordinary weapons dictated extraordinary outcomes. The implications for doctrine were profound. Military planners began integrating rifle performance metrics into operational models, recognizing that even small differences in recoil magazine reliability or sighting accuracy could shift engagement outcomes. Training protocols evolved to emphasize the synergistic relationship between soldier skill, environmental adaptation, and weapon capability. Eastern forces leveraged the AK-74's durability to enhance maneuver warfare in varied terrain, while Western forces refined urban combat tactics around the G36, prioritizing precision coordination and rapid engagement. Simulations and live-fire exercises confirmed that rifle mastery had become as critical as numerical strength or artillery support, redefining the balance of combat in contemporary European operations. Psychological effects extended beyond individual soldiers. Units developed confidence rooted in their rifles' performance, influencing decision-making initiative and operational tempo. The perception of reliability reduced hesitation, increased aggression when appropriate, and fostered cohesive teamwork. Folklore narratives reinforced these effects, creating a culture in which the rifle was both trusted and revered. The convergence of anecdotal experience and empirical evidence validated that standard-issue weapons had transcended their mechanical role, becoming central to the orchestration of combat, the planning of operations, and the management of human behavior under duress. As analysts reviewed the cumulative data, the broader consequences emerged. The AK-74 and G36 were not just instruments of infantry firepower. They were determinants of operational sustainability, tactical initiative, and strategic influence. Units equipped with these rifles consistently outperformed expectations in simulations, exercises, and controlled engagements. Minor mechanical variances repeatedly proved decisive, and soldiers' interactions with their weapons demonstrated a consistent pattern of amplified effectiveness. Maps, charts, and engagement logs illustrated an invisible architecture of influence, showing that standard rifles had become silent architects of battlefield dynamics. Folklore and anecdote, long considered peripheral, gained credibility when aligned with rigorous observation. Revealing a profound truth, rifles had quietly become the arbiters of modern warfare. In closing, the lessons of these exercises extended far beyond the training grounds. They emphasized the inseparable connection between human skill, environmental factors, and weapon performance. The AK-74 and G36 had demonstrated that even ordinary rifles in capable hands could shape outcomes at every level of combat. Their legacy would inform doctrine training and operational planning for years to come, establishing a new paradigm in which equipment, human ingenuity, and environmental mastery coalesced to determine success or failure. What if commanders of the past had underestimated the silent power of the standard rifle? What opportunities and threats might emerge when technology and human skill converge in unexpected ways? Next, we'll explore how emerging infantry technologies, precision-guided munitions, and next-generation rifles are poised to further reshape the battlefield, continuing the story of weapons that define not just engagements, but the very nature of modern warfare. The evolution of the rifle from the AK-74 and G36 to future systems is a narrative of engineering strategy and human adaptation, a testament to the quiet yet profound influence of what was once considered a simple tool. And as the snow settles and urban streets grow silent, the lessons endure, echoing across training grounds, exercises, and future theaters of conflict. The rifle, unassuming yet extraordinary, remains at the heart of modern warfare, shaping not only battles but the very understanding of combat itself.